18 months after the Exodus, the Galactic Council faced the end of everything they had built over thousands of years. The final emergency session was held in a chamber where half the lights no longer worked, and the air recycling systems made strange grinding noises. The breaking point came when the central hyperspace beacon network began to fail. This network was the backbone of galactic civilization, allowing ships to travel safely between star systems. Without it, the galaxy would break apart into isolated worlds, cut off from each other by the vast darkness of space. Systems analyst Do Hyun had maintained this network for 12 years. He had not built it. That had been done by a coalition of the most advanced species long before humans reached the stars. But over time he had made countless improvements and adjustments that kept the ancient system running smoothly. The aliens had not understood how much they depended on his work until it was gone. Chief Engineer Rakthul of the Hegemony stood before the emergency council session, his multiple eyes showing barely controlled panic. The beacon network is experiencing cascade failures across 17 sectors, he reported. We estimate complete system collapse within 6 months. A horrified silence filled the chamber. Without the beacon network, ships trying to use hyperspace would be lost in the void between dimensions. Trade would become impossible. Communication between worlds would take decades instead of days. The galactic civilization would end. Can it be repaired? Asked Counselor Plexanon, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. We have tried, Rakthul admitted. But the modifications made by the human technician are beyond our understanding. His adjustments were based on intuitive understanding of hyperspace mechanics that our best scientists cannot duplicate. Speaker Ventar of the Akari stood slowly, his crystalline form dim with exhaustion and defeat. He had not slept properly in months, spending his time trying to coordinate emergency aid to failing colonies across the galaxy. I move, he said, his voice crystal clear despite his weariness, that we formally request the return of humanity to Council space, with full privileges, and our sincere apologies for our past actions. The motion hung in the air like a confession of total failure. For several minutes no one spoke. Then, one by one, voices began calling out their support. The Thek Collective seconds the motion. The Neem Confederacy agrees. The Meridian Alliance supports this proposal. Even species that had been among humanity's strongest opponents found themselves voting yes. The Hegemony, the Rim Worlds, the Dreknari, all of them faced the choice between their pride and their survival. When the final vote was counted, 46 species had voted to invite humanity back. Only one voted against, the Vasari, led by Slithkar's stubborn refusal to admit they had been wrong. The formal invitation was drafted quickly and transmitted toward the Sol system. It was a careful document, full of diplomatic language that tried to save face while begging for help. The Council offered humanity full membership, expanded territorial rights, and formal apologies for the containment protocol. For the first time in 18 months, they received more than just an acknowledgement signal. Admiral Hyunwoo appeared on the main communication screen. He was older than when the aliens had last seen him, with gray streaks in his black hair and new lines around his eyes. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations, but there was something in his bearing that commanded respect. Behind him, the aliens could see what looked like a command center, but it was unlike any human facility they remembered. The technology visible in the background was clearly more advanced than anything humanity had possessed when they left Council space. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Admiral Hyunwoo said, his voice calm and professional. We have received your invitation to return to Council space. Across the chamber, alien representatives leaned forward hopefully. This was what they had been waiting for. Humanity would return, fix their problems, and everything would go back to normal. We appreciate your offer, the Admiral continued, but we must respectfully decline. The hope in the chamber died like a star going dark. You see, Admiral Hyunwoo explained, the Galactic Council voted to contain humanity within 12 systems for the peace and stability of the galaxy. We have followed this directive completely. We now reside within one system, Sul, and have no intention of expanding beyond it. Slithkar's scales turned bright red with anger. You cannot do this, the galaxy needs your help. Admiral Hyunwoo's expression did not change. The Galactic Council determined that human expansion and influence were threats to galactic stability. We have eliminated that threat by removing ourselves entirely from galactic affairs. But without your help, our civilizations will collapse, pleaded Speaker Ventar. That is unfortunate, Admiral Hyunwoo replied. But it is not humanity's concern. We are now contained within the Sol system, exactly as the Council wished. We will not threaten galactic stability by interfering in the affairs of other species. The Admiral paused, letting his words sink in. We appreciate the Council's concern for our welfare, and we want to assure you that we will continue to avoid any actions that might disturb the peace and stability of the galaxy. Representative Mulketh of the Rimworld stood up desperately. We were wrong, we made a mistake, please, we need your help. The Galactic Council spoke with one voice when it voted for the containment protocol, Admiral Hyunwoo said. 47 species participated in that decision. We respect the wisdom of such a large coalition and have no intention of contradicting it. The vote was 37-3. Mulketh protested. Not all of us supported containment. Yet, the protocol was implemented by the Council as a whole, the Admiral observed. We would not want to create political divisions by treating some Council members differently than others. The communication ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. The aliens stared at the empty screen, slowly understanding what had just happened. Humanity had given them exactly what they had asked for: complete containment, zero expansion, no interference in galactic affairs, no threat to anyone's stability. But in doing so, they had revealed the terrible truth that the Council had been too proud to acknowledge. The galaxy had not been threatened by humanity's strength. It had been dependent on it. Over the following months, the galactic civilization began its final collapse. The beacon network failed completely, cutting off entire sectors from the rest of the galaxy. Colonies that could not maintain their terraforming systems were abandoned. Trade routes that had operated for millennia went dark. Some species survived by retreating to their homeworlds and rebuilding their civilizations with purely indigenous technology. Others were not so fortunate. The Neem lost half their population when their atmospheric scrubbers finally failed completely. 3 Thek colonies became uninhabitable wastelands when their weather control systems created permanent storms. The Kaisti Vessery Empire, once proud and powerful, fragmented into dozens of small kingdoms as their infrastructure collapsed. Without their sensor networks, they could not maintain control over their vast territory. Pirates and raiders, once kept in check by human-improved detection systems, now roamed freely through what had been the safest space in the galaxy. But perhaps the most telling change was on Nexus Station. The great trading hub that had been the center of galactic commerce was slowly dying. Without Engineer Sujin's constant adjustments, the fusion reactors became increasingly unstable. Power failures were now a daily occurrence. The few remaining traders spoke in whispers about the human systems, the 12 star systems where humanity had been contained. Ships that ventured too close to human space reported seeing things that should not have been possible. Megastructures that dwarfed anything in Council space. Energy signatures unlike anything in known technology. It seemed that humanity, freed from the obligation to help maintain galactic civilization, had focused all their energy on advancing their own technology. While the galaxy slowly fell apart, they had been building something new and wonderful in their isolated corner of space. The final council session was held in a chamber lit only by emergency lighting. Fewer than half the species were represented. The others had lost the ability to send ships across the galaxy's broken hyperspace network. I call this session to order, announced the council leader, though his tree-like form was withered and dim, though I suppose there is nothing left to discuss. Slithkar, the Vasari who had championed the containment protocol, stood slowly. His once bright scales were now dull gray, and his movements showed the weight of his years and failures. Wish to make a final statement, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. We sought to contain humanity because we feared their strength. We have succeeded beyond our wildest dreams. They are contained, isolated, no longer a threat to anyone. He paused, looking around the nearly empty chamber. We have achieved exactly what we wanted, and in doing so, we have the huge crystal room destroyed ourselves. The old Vasari sat down heavily, and the chamber fell into a silence that would never be broken. The Galactic Council, after thousands of years of rule, had finally accomplished its goal of protecting the galaxy from humanity. The protection had been perfect, and perfectly fatal. In the Sol system, humanity continued their quiet work. 3 days had passed since the meeting at the Galactic Council. Now 300 Vorthak warships surrounded the human colony of New Busan. The planet was beautiful with green fields and blue oceans. 2 million humans lived there peacefully, growing food and raising families. Admiral Krekstar stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was even bigger than Speaker Zethmach, with thick armor plates covering his insect body. His 6 eyes watched the planet below through the ship's main screen. "Report," he ordered his second-in-command. Commander Vexhal clicked his claws on his control panel. "The human colony has only 2,000 soldiers. Their orbital defense stations are old and weak. We can destroy them in 1 hour. And their ships? 12 small patrol boats. Nothing that can hurt us." Admiral Krekstar felt satisfied. This would be easy. The humans would learn that threatening the galaxy was a mistake. On the planet's surface, Colonel Minho Park looked up at the dark sky. Even in daylight, he could see the Vorthak ships as tiny dots blocking out some stars. He was a short man with kind eyes, but today those eyes were hard with determination. His communication officer ran up to him. "Sir, we're getting a message from Earth. It's marked as Priority 1. Minho took the message device and read it carefully. His eyes grew wide. "Sir?" the young officer asked. "What are our orders?" Minho looked at the message again. It was very strange. He had expected orders to fight or surrender. Instead, Earth wanted him to do something completely different. "Get me Yoonji Kim in the communication center," he said. A few minutes later, he was talking to the colony's head communications officer. Yoonji Kim was 28 years old and very good with computers. She had worked on many different worlds before coming to New Busan. "Yoonji, I need you to prepare every communication device on the planet," Minho told her. "For what, sir? Are we calling for help?" "No, we're going to broadcast something to the Vorthak fleet." Yoonji looked confused. "What kind of message? A surrender?" Minho showed her the orders from Earth. She read them twice, then looked up at him with surprise. "Sir, are you sure this is right? They want us to send this? Those are our orders. Can you do it?" Yoonji nodded slowly. "Yes, sir, but it will take me a few hours to get everything ready." "What exactly are we sending?" In the colony's main archive building, So-young Jang was already working. She was the head archivist responsible for keeping records and data safe. She was 40 years old and had spent her whole life collecting and organizing information. Her assistant, Woo Jin, Nam, helped her prepare the data packages. Woo Jin was young and always asked many questions. "Miss Jang, what is all this stuff?" Woo Jin asked, looking at the files on his computer screen. So-young smiled sadly. "It's everything, Woo Jin. Everything that makes us human." She showed him the files. There were thousands of them. Music from every human culture. Pictures and paintings from every time period. Stories and books and poems. Videos of humans laughing, crying, celebrating, and living normal lives. "I don't understand," Woo Jin said. "How is this going to help fight the Vorthak?" "Earth scientists believe it will work," So-young replied. "They say it has never failed in our entire history." "What has never failed?" So-young looked out the window at the sky. "Showing others what we really are." Above the planet, Admiral Krekstar was getting impatient. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Destroy their orbital defenses first." The Vorthak ships fired their plasma cannons. Bright green beams shot down from space and hit the human defense stations. The old human technology could not stop the powerful alien weapons. One by one, the orbital platforms exploded in balls of fire. "Their defenses are down," Commander Vexhal reported. "Ready to begin landing operations." "Send down the first wave," the Admiral ordered. 10,000 soldiers, make it quick." Large landing ships dropped from the Vorthak fleet toward the planet's surface. They looked like giant metal insects with glowing engines. On the ground, Min-ho Park received a call from Yoonji Kim. "Sir, we're ready. All communication arrays are online. Every radio tower, every satellite, every data relay on the planet is connected." "Good. Start the broadcast as soon as the first landing ship enters the atmosphere." "Sir, I have to ask, what if this doesn't work?" Min-ho watched the Vorthak ships growing larger as they came down from space. "Then we find out what happens when you corner a human." The first landing ship hit the atmosphere and began to glow from the heat. At that exact moment, Yoonji Kim pressed a button in the communication center. Every transmission device on New Busan began broadcasting at the same time. The signal was incredibly powerful, using every bit of energy the colony could generate. It shot out in all directions through space. The signal reached the Vorthak fleet instantly. It went through their communication systems, past their security barriers, and began playing on every screen and speaker in every ship. Admiral Krekstar was watching the landing operation when his command screen suddenly changed. Instead of tactical information, it showed something he had never seen before. It was a human face, an old human man with white hair and kind eyes, holding a strange wooden object. The man began moving his fingers, and beautiful sounds came from the object. "What is this?" the Admiral demanded. "Turn it off." Commander Vexhal tried to shut down the screen, but it would not respond. "Sir, it's coming through all our systems. I can't stop it." The beautiful sounds continued. Other screens around the bridge showed different things. A human woman singing with her voice. A group of humans making music together with many different objects. Children laughing and dancing. "This is some kind of attack," Admiral Krekstar said. But his voice was quieter than usual. The sounds were strange. They made him feel something he had never felt before. On all the other ships in the fleet, the same thing was happening. Every Vorthak soldier, every officer, every crew member was seeing and hearing things they could not understand. The transmission was carefully organized. It started with simple music that was easy for alien minds to process. Then it became more complex. Different types of music from different human cultures. Classical music, folk songs, jazz, and modern compositions. But music was just the beginning. After 30 minutes, the transmission changed. Now the screens showed human art. Cave paintings from thousands of years ago. Beautiful pottery and sculptures. Paintings of landscapes and people. Modern digital art that moved and changed colors. The Vorthak had never seen anything like it. Their species was logical and practical. They built things because they needed them. The idea of making something just because it was beautiful was completely foreign to them. In his landing ship, Captain Mordak stared at his screen in confusion. It showed a simple human drawing of a mother holding her baby. The drawing was not realistic, but somehow it made him understand something about love and protection that his species had never experienced. "Captain," his pilot called. "Should we continue the landing?" Captain Mordax could not answer. He was too busy trying to understand what he was seeing. All across the Vorthak fleet, the same thing was happening. Soldiers forgot their orders. Officers ignored their duties. Everyone was focused on the strange, beautiful things coming from the human planet. The landing ship slowed down and stopped in the atmosphere, their crews unable to focus on anything except the mysterious broadcast from below. The human broadcast had been going for 6 hours. On every Vorthak ship, alien minds were experiencing something completely new. The music and art were just the beginning. Now came something even more powerful. In the detention block of the flagship, Tae-hyun Seo watched the chaos through his cell's small window. He was a human cultural attaché who had been captured 3 months ago during a diplomatic mission. The Vorthak had kept him alive to study human behavior. Now he could see Vorthak guards sitting on the floor, staring at their communication devices with confused expressions. Some of them were making strange sounds, something that sounded almost like crying. On the main bridge, Admiral Krekstar could not look away from his screen. The broadcast had moved beyond music and art. Now it was showing human stories. The first story was very old and simple. It was about a king who became friends with a wild man and how they went on adventures together. The story was called the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it was thousands of years old. But even though it was old and simple, it made Admiral Krextar feel things he had never felt before. The idea of friendship, of choosing to help someone even when you gained nothing from it, was impossible for his logical mind to understand. Yet somehow, the story made it feel real and important. Commander Vexhall had stopped giving orders, completely. His screen showed a different human story, about two young people who loved each other but could not be together because their families were enemies. The story ended sadly with both young people dying, but somehow the sadness felt beautiful and meaningful. "Sir," a junior officer called weakly, "the landing ships are asking for new orders. They don't know what to do." Admiral Krextar tried to focus on military matters, but his attention kept returning to the screen. A new story was starting. This one was about a human naval commander who fought against impossible odds to protect his country. The story told how Admiral Yi Sun Sin used only 13 ships to defeat a fleet of 300 enemy vessels. But what confused the Vorthak Admiral was not the military strategy. It was the reason why the human commander fought so hard. Yi Sun Sin did not fight for money or power. He fought to protect people he would never meet. He fought for an idea, the idea that his country and culture were worth dying for. This concept was completely alien to the Vorthak, who only fought when ordered to do so by their superiors. Across the fleet, similar scenes were playing out on every ship. Captain Mordax, still floating in his landing ship above New Busan, was watching a story about a human father teaching his daughter to ride a bicycle. The captain's logical mind could not understand why this was important. The bicycle served no military purpose. The teaching served no economic function. Yet the story filled him with a warm feeling he had never experienced. The human father ran beside his child, holding the bicycle steady, then slowly let go so she could ride alone. When the little girl fell down, she cried. When she got back up and tried again, she laughed. The father watched with an expression of pure joy. For the first time in his life, Captain Mordax wondered what it would feel like to have a child. The Vorthak reproduced by laying eggs in communal hatcheries. Parents never met their offspring. The idea of caring for a specific individual child was foreign and fascinating. In Earth's command center, GNAO monitored the aliens' responses through quantum sensors hidden in the broadcast signal. She was a xenopsychologist who had spent years studying alien minds. Her colleague, Seok Jin Han, looked at the data streaming across their screens. "Jin'e, look at these neural readings. The Vorthak brain activity is off the charts." "They're experiencing narrative for the first time," Jin'e explained. "Their species evolved without storytelling. They have records and histories, but they never developed the ability to find meaning through stories. And that's causing this reaction?" Jin-I nodded excitedly. "Stories are how humans make sense of existence. We use them to understand emotions, relationships, purpose, and meaning. The Vorthak are encountering these concepts for the first time through our broadcast." The broadcast continued to evolve. After the ancient and classical stories came more modern tales. Stories about ordinary humans living ordinary lives, falling in love, raising children, facing problems, and finding happiness in small moments. On the Vorthak destroyer Void Render, the crew had completely abandoned their duties. Engineering Officer Klexma sat in front of a screen showing a simple story about a human grandmother baking cookies with her grandchildren. The story had no conflict, no drama, no important events. It was just about an old woman sharing her knowledge, with young ones and all of them enjoying the time they spent together. But somehow this simple story made Klexma understand something profound about the passing of time and the connection between generations. The most powerful stories were yet to come. The broadcast began showing personal accounts from real humans, diary entries, letters, and video messages that revealed the inner thoughts and feelings of ordinary people. A young human mother wrote about the first time her baby smiled at her. An old man described his feelings when his wife of 50 years died peacefully in her sleep. A teenager wrote about the day she realized what she wanted to do with her life. These personal stories hit the Vorthak even harder than the famous ones. They were seeing directly into human minds and hearts. They were learning about hope, grief, love, fear, joy, and wonder. All the emotions that made humans who they were. Admiral Krextar found himself watching a video message from a human soldier writing to his family before a dangerous mission. The soldier was scared but determined. He talked about how much he loved his wife and children. He said he was fighting not because he hated his enemies, but because he wanted to protect the people and things he cared about. "I don't want to die," the soldier said in the video. "But if I do, I want you to know that every day I spent with you was worth it. You made my life beautiful, and that beauty is worth fighting for." For Admiral Krextar, this was the moment of complete understanding. Humans did not fight just to win. They fought to protect beauty, love, and meaning. They created art and music and stories not because they had to, but because these things made life worth living. The broadcast was now reaching other alien species throughout the galaxy. The signals were being picked up by ships and stations belonging to the Crystal Alliance, the Machine Collective, and dozens of other civilizations. On a Crystal Alliance monitoring station, the crystalline beings experienced human poetry for the first time. Their consciousness was based on harmonic resonances, and human poetry created patterns of meaning that their minds could barely process. The Machine Collective's artificial intelligences struggled with human stories about sacrifice and selflessness. Their programming was based on logic and efficiency. The idea of doing something that was not practical or profitable caused cascading errors in their decision-making systems. Back on New Busan, Colonel Minho Park received regular updates from his communications team. "Sir," Yoonji Kim reported, "we're getting responses from all over the galaxy. The signal has reached at least 40 different alien civilizations." "What kind of responses?" "Mostly confusion, sir, but also curiosity. They're asking for more. They want to understand what they're experiencing." So Young had prepared for this moment. She had organized the greatest collection of human culture ever assembled. Every song, every painting, every story, every poem that represented the best of what humans had created over thousands of years. "Begin Phase 3, Minho ordered. The broadcast changed again. Now it showed humans creating art in real time, musicians composing new songs, artists painting pictures, writers crafting stories, and ordinary people finding beauty in everyday moments. The aliens watched humans work in gardens, cook meals, play games, celebrate holidays, and help strangers. They saw humans being kind to animals, caring for sick friends, and finding joy in simple pleasures. Most importantly, they saw humans choosing to create beauty, even in difficult circumstances. Prisoners making art from scraps, soldiers writing poetry during wars, families singing together during hard times. The message was clear. Humans made beauty not in spite of their difficulties, but because of them. They created meaning and purpose in a universe that could be harsh and unfair. As the broadcast continued, the Vorthak fleet remained motionless above New Busan. Every alien mind was focused on understanding this new concept called humanity. 2 days had passed since the broadcast began. The Vorthak fleet still floated above New Busan, but everything had changed. The mighty warships that had come to destroy the human colony now drifted aimlessly through space. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Krextar had not moved from his command chair in 36 hours. His 6 eyes remained fixed on the screen showing endless streams of human creativity. Right now, he was watching a video of a human child learning to play a musical instrument called a violin. The child was not very good at first. The sounds she made were scratchy and unpleasant. But she kept trying. Her teacher was patient and kind. Her parents encouraged her. After many months of practice, she could play simple songs. After years, she could make the violin sing with beautiful music. Admiral Krextar could not understand why this simple story affected him so deeply. The Vorthak learned skills quickly through neural downloads. The idea of spending years slowly improving at something seemed inefficient and pointless. Yet watching the human child's long journey from beginner to expert felt more meaningful than any instant knowledge transfer. "Admiral," Commander Vexhall said quietly. He had been trying to get his superior's attention for hours. Krextar slowly turned his head. For the first time in days, he looked away from the screen. "What is it, Commander?" "Sir, we have reports from the entire fleet. No ship is following orders. All crew members are watching the human broadcasts. Are the humans trying to escape?" "No, sir. They're still on the planet. But, sir, that's not the important thing." Admiral Krextar felt confused. Not following orders had always been the worst possible thing for a Vorthak soldier. Now it did not seem important at all. "What is important?" Commander Vexhal looked at his own screen, which showed a human wedding ceremony. Two people promising to love each other forever, surrounded by friends and family, who celebrated their happiness. "Sir, I don't think we can attack them anymore." "Why not?" Because now I understand what we would be destroying." The same conversation was happening all across the fleet. Vorthak soldiers who had been trained to follow orders without question were now questioning everything. They had spent their lives believing that strength and victory were the most important things. The human broadcast was showing them something completely different. Captain Mordax finally landed his ship on the planet's surface, but not to attack. He wanted to be closer to the source of these amazing human transmissions. His soldiers sat around their landing craft, watching portable screens that showed human families having dinner together. The concept of a family meal was revolutionary to the Vorthak. They ate nutritious paste from feeding tubes when their bodies required fuel. The idea of gathering together, preparing food carefully and sharing stories while eating seemed strange but wonderful. "Captain," one of his soldiers asked, "why do humans spend so much time on things that don't help them survive?" Captain Mordax had been wondering the same thing. I think that's exactly why they survive so well." Meanwhile, news of the situation was spreading throughout the galaxy. On the Galactic Council station, emergency meetings were being held in every governmental building. Speaker Zethmak paced back and forth in his private office. Reports were coming in from dozens of worlds. Every species that had received the human broadcast was experiencing similar reactions. The Crystal Alliance's geometric cities had fallen silent as their inhabitants tried to process human music. The machine collective's efficiency ratings had dropped to 0 because their AIs were spending all their processing power analyzing human poetry. Even the warlike Flame Riders had stopped their constant battles to watch human love stories. "This is impossible," Zethmak clicked to his advisors. "One small human colony cannot paralyze our entire civilization." His chief military advisor, General Thrackle, looked exhausted. "Sir, it's not just our civilization. Every species in the known galaxy is being affected. Our communications networks are flooded with requests for more human cultural materials." "What kind of requests?" "Art, music, stories, poems. Some species are asking for instructions on how to create these things themselves." Zethmak felt a strange sensation in his chest. It took him several minutes to realize he was experiencing what humans called curiosity. Against his better judgment, he accessed the human broadcast on his personal viewing device. The first thing he saw was a simple human song about rain falling on growing plants. The melody was gentle and peaceful. The words talked about how rain helped flowers bloom, how farmers were happy when it watered their crops, and how children liked to splash in puddles. It was the most pointless song Zethmak had ever heard. Rain was just water falling from clouds due to atmospheric pressure changes. There was nothing special or meaningful about it. But somehow the song made him see rain differently. It made him think about growth, renewal, and the simple joy of being alive on a world where water fell from the sky to help things grow. For the first time in his life, he wanted to experience rain not as a weather phenomenon, but as something beautiful. Back on New Busan, Colonel Minho Park was receiving reports from around the galaxy. His small colony had accidentally become the center of the most important cultural event in galactic history. "Sir," Yoonji Kim told him, "we're getting communication requests from hundreds of different species. They all want to know more about human culture." "What are they asking?" "Everything. How we make music, why we tell stories, what love feels like, how we choose what's beautiful. Some of them are asking if they can visit Earth to learn from us." Minho looked out at the Vorthak landing ships, scattered across his colony's fields. The alien soldiers were sitting in groups, watching human broadcasts on portable devices. Some of them were trying to sing along with human songs. They were terrible at it, but they seemed to be enjoying themselves. So Yang had been working around the clock to organize more cultural materials. Her assistant Wu Jin Nam looked exhausted but excited. "Miss Jiang," Wu Jin said, "I've been thinking about what we're doing here. We're not just showing them our art and music. We're showing them how to be more than just surviving." So, Young nodded. Every human culture discovered the same thing, Wu Jin. Life is more than just staying alive and reproducing. We create beauty, meaning, and connection because these things make existence worthwhile. And the aliens never figured this out? Their species developed differently. They became efficient and powerful, but they never learned to find joy in creation. They never discovered that beauty is not a luxury. It's what makes life worth living. The broadcast continued to evolve. Now it was showing humans in their natural environments, not performing or creating art, but simply living with appreciation for beauty. A farmer watching a sunset after a hard day's work. A mother singing her baby to sleep. An old man feeding birds in a park. These quiet moments were the most powerful part of the broadcast. They showed that humans found meaning everywhere. In ordinary work, in caring for others, in small acts of kindness, and in taking time to notice the beauty that existed all around them. On Earth, the government was scrambling to respond to the galactic situation. Defense Minister Sung-Min Lee was in constant communication with xenobiologist Bo-Ra Park and strategist Hyun-Woo Choi. "The plan is working better than we ever imagined," Bo-Ra reported. Initial xenopsychological analysis suggests that most alien species are experiencing what we might call cultural awakening. They're discovering creativity for the first time. Hyun-Woo was monitoring military communications across the galaxy. All major fleets have ceased offensive operations. Some species are asking their warriors to come home so they can learn about human culture. The galaxy's entire military structure is reorganizing around curiosity instead of conquest. Sung-Min felt amazed and slightly frightened. "We wanted to avoid war, but we may have accidentally started a cultural revolution." "Is that a bad thing?" Bo-Ra asked. Before Sung-Min could answer, they received an urgent message from Dae-ho Kim on the council station. The ambassador's face appeared on their communication screen. "The council wants to meet again," Dae-ho said. "But this time they're not making demands. They're making a request." "What kind of request?" Dae-ho smiled. "They want to know if humans would be willing to teach them how to create art." 1 month had passed since the human broadcast began. The galaxy was completely different now. Ambassador Dae-ho Kim stood once again in the great crystal chamber of the Galactic Council, but everything had changed. Where once there had been hundreds of angry aliens demanding human surrender, now there were curious beings asking questions about art, music, and stories. The chamber walls were covered with alien attempts at human-style paintings. Some were strange and primitive, but all of them showed a new desire to create beauty. Speaker Zethmak approached the human ambassador, but his manner was completely different. The proud, threatening alien leader now moved hesitantly, like a student approaching a wise teacher. "Ambassador Kim," Zethmak said softly, "we owe you an apology. We thought we understood what made humans dangerous. We were both right and wrong." "How so?" Dae-ho asked. "You are dangerous, but not in the way we expected. Your weapons are not nuclear bombs or plasma cannons. Your greatest weapon is your ability to show others what they are missing from their lives." Above them in the viewing area, Bo-Ra Park, Sung-Min Lee, and Hyun-Woo Choi watched the historic meeting. All 3 humans wore expressions of wonder and pride. "The xenopsychological impact has exceeded all our projections," Bo-Ra whispered to her colleagues. "We've essentially triggered an evolutionary leap in galactic consciousness." Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species displayed their first attempts at creative expression. The Crystal Alliance had learned to make music using harmonic resonances in their crystalline bodies. The Machine Collective had programmed their AIs to generate poetry based on mathematical beauty. Even the warlike flame riders had begun creating sculptures from melted metal. "We have a proposal," Zethmak continued. "The Galactic Council wishes to establish a new organization. We want to call it the Cultural Exchange Alliance." "What would this alliance do?" Deho asked. "Learn from humans. Teach other species to create art and music and stories. Share the beauty that we never knew existed." In the viewing area, Hyunwoo Choi smiled. "They're essentially asking us to become their cultural teachers. The galaxy's most feared military. Alliances want to disband and become art schools." The transformation had been remarkably fast. On the Vorthak homeworld, Admiral Krextar had requested immediate retirement from military service. He now spent his days trying to learn how to play a human instrument called a piano. His progress was slow and the sounds he made were not very good, but he found deep satisfaction in the effort. "I spent my life learning to destroy things efficiently," he had told his former officers. "Now I want to spend the rest of my life learning to create something beautiful, even if it takes me years to succeed." Captain Mordax had done something even more revolutionary. He had asked to visit Earth to study human families. The concept of parents caring for specific children, of love between individuals, of sacrifice for others' happiness, all of these ideas fascinated him. He wanted to understand how such feelings developed and why they made life meaningful. Commander Vexhall had become obsessed with human literature. He was slowly working his way through every story humans had ever written, trying to understand how narratives created meaning. His favorites were simple tales about ordinary people overcoming small problems through kindness and determination. Back on New Busan, Colonel Min-ho Park had watched his former enemies become friends. The Vorthak soldiers who had come to destroy his colony were now living peacefully among the human settlers, learning about agriculture, art, and family life. So Young Jang had been promoted to Director of Galactic Cultural Affairs. Her archive had become the most important library in known space. Every day, representatives from different alien species came to study human creativity and learn how to develop their own cultural expressions. "Miss Jang," her assistant Woo Jin Nam said one morning, "I've been thinking about what happened here. Did we really win a war without fighting?" So Young looked out the window at Vorthak and human children playing together in the colony's gardens. "We didn't win a war, Woo Jin. We ended the need for war. We showed them that life has more meaning when you create beauty than when you destroy things." The broadcast station where Yoonji Kim had started the transmission had been expanded into a galactic communication center. Every day it sent human cultural materials to thousands of worlds, but now it was also receiving creative works from other species, their first attempts at music, art, and storytelling. The results were often strange and sometimes impossible to understand, but they all showed the same thing. Intelligent beings throughout the galaxy were learning to find joy in creation. On Earth, the government was struggling to keep up with requests for cultural exchange. Every alien species wanted to send representatives to study human creativity. New schools and cultural centers were being built to accommodate thousands of alien students. Defense Minister Sungmin Lee had been reassigned to become Minister of Galactic Cultural Relations. His military background was no longer needed in a galaxy that had largely given up warfare in favor of artistic expression. "It's remarkable," he told Bo-Ra Park during one of their regular meetings. "Species that have been fighting each other for thousands of years are now collaborating on art projects. The Crystal Alliance and the Flame Riders are working together to create a musical performance that combines crystal harmonics with fire sculpture." Bo-Ra nodded excitedly. "The psychological changes are permanent too. Once a species discovers creativity and meaning-making, they can't go back to purely survival-based thinking. We've accidentally caused the most peaceful period in galactic history." Young Hyunwoo Choi, now promoted to Galactic Strategic Affairs Director, was monitoring the long-term implications. "The changes go beyond just peace," he reported. "Trade has increased by 300% because species are sharing resources to support art projects. Scientific research has accelerated because aliens are now curious about beauty in nature. Even reproduction rates have changed. Species that discover love and family bonds have more children. But the most significant change was happening to humanity itself. Being recognized as the galaxy's cultural teachers had given humans a new sense of purpose and identity. Ambassador Dae-ho Kim concluded his address to the Galactic Council with words that would be remembered for centuries. When you first threatened us, you said we were dangerous because we knew how to fight. You were right, but incomplete. Humans are dangerous because we know that some things are worth fighting for. We create beauty, meaning, and love, and we will defend these things against anyone who tries to destroy them. But here's what you didn't understand. Once you experience beauty, meaning, and love for yourself, you don't want to destroy them anymore. You want to create more of them. You want to share them. You want to protect them too. He looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces, faces that now showed wonder and curiosity instead of fear and aggression. Our greatest weapon was never our ability to destroy. It was our ability to inspire others to become more than they ever imagined they could be. We showed you that existence can be more than just survival. It can be beautiful, meaningful, and joyful. The chamber was completely silent for a long moment. Then, something unprecedented happened in Galactic Council history. Every alien representative began making their species' version of applause, clicking, humming, flashing lights, and releasing pleasant scents. But the most remarkable sound came from Speaker Zethmak himself. For the first time in Vorthak history, he began to sing, a simple, wordless melody that expressed emotions he had just learned to feel. The galaxy had learned that humanity's deadliest weapon was not their capacity for violence, but their capacity for beauty. And in learning this lesson, every species had discovered something wonderful about themselves. They too could create, could love, could find meaning in existence beyond mere survival. The age of galactic warfare was over. The age of galactic culture had begun, and at the center of it all were the humans, no longer seen as a dangerous military threat, but as beloved teachers who had shown the universe how to make life worth living. In the end, humanity had conquered the galaxy not through superior firepower, but through superior imagination. They had won the greatest victory possible. They had turned their enemies into friends by showing them the beauty they had been missing all their lives.